There was a huge number of people who applied for the job, and we got our first choice candidate.
Whatever I do, I get my hands dirty. There are talkers and there are doers. I like to do.
Welcome to the City Voice podcast. This is a very, very special edition because I'm joined by two incredibly special guests. Lutz, welcome back. But we know the attention today is going to be on Bradley Carnell, our first ever head coach. Welcome to the podcast, Bradley. Welcome to St. Louis. How do you feel?
Excited. Yeah, really overjoyed about the appointment. Really excited to get my hands dirty and can't wait to get going.
Lutz, this is arguably one of the most important hires you're going to make over the next 18 months. How are you feeling?
Yeah, just like Bradley, I think very excited, like everybody else in the club. You know, it was our first choice candidate. It was the candidate we had tracked since a long time. And to finally get him here, get everything sorted and appointing him to be the first head coach of that really beautiful club is definitely a special day for all of us.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to go through your bio, Bradley, because you've got quite a storied career. You've played international level. You've been to World Cups. You've just started out in your coaching career, and you've had a great time. And now you're with us as our first head coach. So let's go through. Firstly, position, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be. Position, left back.
Yes.
You were the youngest player to play professionally in South Africa, making your debut for Wits University at age 16.
Age 16, that was the legal age back then. I don't know if it's changed now, but yeah, legal age 16. So I was training with the first team from the age of 15, waited for my 16th birthday, played 2 weeks later. So the rest is history, but I think that's been broken once since that record stood. So yeah, I think somebody else has beat me to the post by 2 weeks maybe.
Incredible. And we'll get into why that's relevant a little bit later in the podcast. You moved to storied South African club, the Kaizer Chiefs, before earning a move to Stuttgart. You played under Ralf Rangnick, but it wasn't Ralf that brought you to the club.
No. I mean, obviously Stuttgart had a style of play and a way of playing and a philosophy, clear identity, of which why I landed up there in the first place. So when our coach got sacked, the one who got me there, Winnie Schaefer, Ralf Rangnick came in. We had an interim role with somebody, and then Ralf Rangnick came in after his time at SSV Ulm. And kind of him and I struck it off. I played some of my best soccer under Ralf in those years from 99 through 2001. We won the Intertoto Cup. We qualified for the UEFA Cup through that mechanism. So we were like finishing in the Bundesliga, positions 5 to 7, I think it was, into total qualification at that time, and then got our berth into the UEFA Cup, and that's how we went about doing the business there. And under that time, I flourished. He empowered youth. He saw tools of players and weapons of players that really enforced his playing style, and those are things that have just sat with me, not based on being told what to do, by doing what came naturally, and then just filing through those tools and weapons that I possessed as a player, which made me, forge the pathway I did and land me up to where I'm sitting today.
And just to put some context for the European soccer buffs, to put some context on when you were at Stuttgart, you had played with Alexander Hleb, who's a Premier League player for Arsenal.
He was a young gun coming through the ranks. We signed this kid from Belarus, and we saw some great talent in him. He came through the school of hard knocks in terms of how we applied our trade at Stuttgart. So he had to adapt quickly, get up to speed with the game quickly. He was magnificent on the ball. He had some learning traits against the ball to work with and to develop. And he had a great career. He went on to play many good seasons at Arsenal and then made the jump to Barcelona. So fantastic career he's achieved. But yeah, listen, I always believe it's those baby steps in the beginning to forge your pathway, to learn different traits. You cannot just rely on only what you're good at. You need to bring all these ingredients together to what makes you build a successful career, because many people can be a flash in the pan with one good season and then they disappear. So many talented players we've lost all over the world just by, thinking they've got it all figured out in 1 year. So Alex had to go through a little bit of that before he got onto the big leagues and made it into England.
You played for Borussia Mönchengladbach, Karlsruhe and Hansa Rostock. You ended your 12-year German adventure by heading back to South Africa for Supersport United. I can confirm to everybody listening that you speak pretty good German because you and Lutz have been talking in the language in between sessions. Your international career, 42 caps. You also went to the World Cup in 2002. Yep. Did you play?
I did. We played. We had Paraguay in our group with Spain and Slovenia. So, yeah, we had 4 points at the end of the 3 games. We lost 3-2 to Spain in the last group game. And, yeah, I think it was Rocky Santa Cruz who crushed our dreams 10 minutes before the end. We would have got through, but they drew their last game. We were, losing to Spain, and unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. But 4 points, usually with a decent goal differential, gets you into the next round. But we fell just short, which crushed our dreams. We felt we had a really good squad back then. Lucas Radebe, Benny McCarthy, Quinton Fortune, so Delron Buckley. We had an excellent squad, a good core players. Stephen Pino was a core player back then, but not really a starter. But yeah, it crushed many South African dreams there when we got knocked out.
And then the final part, your journey to St. Louis City SC has come via Red Bull New York. You joined there as an assistant manager. You managed 14 games as an interim coach.
I'll never forget the day when, I got offered the opportunity of coming on board with the Red Bulls and having a Zoom call with Jesse. I was in South Africa. He was in Arizona, I think it was, on the preseason camp. I missed the preseason camp with work permit issues, and I only joined him in April. But just the dialogue that I had with Jesse and just his approach and my vision and my background and my playing style and who I was as a person really spoke with Jesse. And I have him a big major role and part player to basically getting where I am today. I was built in a certain way as a player, forging my way as a coach. I coached at the University of Johannesburg for 3 years, and I sort of titled it, When the Lights Are Not On. You can experiment, you can try things, there's no focus, there's no pressure, there's no live television. You pitch up on the Saturday, did my plan work or didn't it work? And you can fall down those little learning pathways and mistakes, and you pick yourself up and go again. But now it planted me with some tools and some seeds, to grow under, what I want to be as a coach. And Jesse really forged that all together with me, and we have a great relationship. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Lutz, just a sort of salacious question, not really, but did you two ever cross paths as players? Did you ever know each other? Were you aware of each other's existence, or were you like two pros, heads down, just focusing on your own careers?
Well, we knew of each other because I played in South Africa as well, and I always followed the South African players when they were in Europe. But usually when Bradley was playing in Germany, I played somewhere else abroad. But I would say we know each other since quite a long time, yeah.
And I did find a little bit of information, wasn't sure of the veracity, but you started as a goalkeeper.
No, so long story. All right.
I hope not. You're too short, man, to be a goalkeeper.
So I was about 7 years old, way back, just thinking, falling in love with the game, right? And Bruce Grobbelaar, Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
He's, local South African, or actually Rhodesian born.
Legendary.
Legendary. I mean, Liverpool was my team growing up, is my team. And Bruce Grobbelaar, John Barnes. Those were the only two players I ever wanted to be and emulate. Went down to my local club. Gary Bailey at that time was hosting clinics, South Africa, English-born, South African, native, whatever you want to call Gary. But yeah, Gary and I have since then become very good friends. He told me, you're not going to be the goalkeeper. You're not going to develop into the goalkeeping role. So that was me forgetting about that idea. Went home, rethought the plans, came back as an outfield player, and the rest is history. And I'm proud and grateful for those little nuggets of information along the way to have got me where I am.
But there's got to be something in the mentality of at least wanting to be a goalkeeper. Goalkeepers have got a different sort of mindset, right?
Bruce Grobbelaar was a pretty crazy goalkeeper. But I heard actually when Gary told him that it won't work out, he went back, he burned his gloves, cried for a few minutes, and then really decided to be an outfield player. So that's fine. I think
it worked out well.
I think he made the right decision, yeah.
They say left backs and goalkeepers are always a dangerous combination. There's always a screw loose somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I agree with that. So let's Let's briefly touch on who you are as a person, and because the fans of St. Louis are always interested in the background and, you know, like where you've come from. So you grew up in Johannesburg. Could you tell us a little bit about how that impacted your mentality, your mindset of, you know, getting to where you are today? Sure.
Listen, born and raised in the southern parts of Johannesburg, and very mediocre, you know, lifestyle, very modest lifestyle, family first, humble upbringings, by no means wanting. So I don't want to play the sorry story that it was terrible. You know, I had a really modest upbringing, and I've always had this ambition to become something, right, of your life. And I've always been taught, if you want something, go out and get it, but you have to work for it. And a lot of experiences where I've gone and what I've done is always based on your upbringing. I believe you need to be grounded, you need to be focused, and you need to have morals and values. And for me, my morals and values have always been doing right and treating people the right way, and being humble in your approach, you know. It's always just about being doing the job that you've been gifted to as a player. You've been a gift. You've been awarded this gift. What are you going to do with it? And I've had too many experiences in my life where people much more gifted than me didn't make it because maybe entitled, or maybe not humbled, or maybe upbringing didn't help them. So it's my opportunity now, and it's been a driving passion of mine to do good, empower people, hold people accountable, and try and get the best out of people from many different walks of life. So this is who I've been, and like I said, it's not here to it's not a sorry story. You know, we've all, you know, pre-apartheid sanctioned to try and get on the radar of being anywhere. And I lived through that whole process of, racial, you know what it is in South Africa, how it's been, the history. I went to school segregated. I went to school mixed. So I had all these influences, and they've forged me to who I am where I am today, and made me the coach I am, made me the person I am.
Lutz, there's a common theme that sort of runs through all of the people that you hire. Like you hire humble people, grounded people. What attracted you to Bradley from a personal level? Are these things that you look for in a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I know him well as a person. I know him well as a player, and I also know him pretty well as a coach. But I think the values and really the way we wanna be seen as an organization, the way we want to behave, the way we want to treat each other, but also treat our opponents, treat our fans, treat everybody, I think it is something really, really important. We see it really here, everything in a huge teamwork. And I think this is one of Bradley's strengths, to work within a group, to make each other better, to learn from each other, to add that gift, that talent he just mentioned, to really be involving that in our whole playing philosophy, but also the way we're going to deal with each other and how we want to be seen as a club, as an organization. So that's definitely a very important part. It's not just being a nice guy. It's about to be hardworking, to be modest, to be clear, but also how to get the job done and to realize why we're all here, but still really base that on ethic and morals. And that is definitely an important decision how we want it to be, the head coaching role filled. And Bradley definitely also ticked that box.
And I've been listening to podcasts that you've been on in the past. I've been reading through some of your previous interviews. Family is clearly very important to you. You moved your family to New Jersey in 2017.
Yeah.
I have to ask, are your family excited about moving to St. Louis and moving to the next adventure?
They are. I mean, they've always been up and very supportive of what I'm doing and where we're going. Obviously, it's never easy. So I've been fortunate to align myself with clubs, people, relationships, networks with people who share similar values. So the places I've been at, I spent 12 years in Germany. In 10 years of those 12, spent at 2 clubs, so which were 40 miles away from each other. So basically in one region, spent 10 years out of 12. So for me, it's about longevity and staying the course. You know, I really want to make it work. There's nothing that I take lightly. There were other instances, Rostock, Gladbach. There were a few things there, physically wise, body wise. You know, this didn't work out, of which it's fine. But, you know, five years at the Red Bulls. So there's always been these areas of experiences that have stood out to me, and based on who we are as people, based on we like the challenges, the ambitions that we have as a family, as people, as life. I mean, growing up bilingual, my kids growing up bilingual, just sharing these experiences for them. Other people never leave Johannesburg. Other people never leave Stuttgart. And other people never leave wherever they've come from, and they stay in their comfort zones. For me, I've always been ambitious enough to take that calculated risk and get onto the other side to see what's around the corner. How is this route going to take us now? So I've never been afraid of accepting these challenges, and we've always found a way to thrive and succeed in any situation we've put ourselves into. And I'm grateful, like I said, for the support that they've given me throughout my career.
Great. Well, St. Louis will be very welcoming to you. I'm sure that you'll bump into a lot of people or say hello. So now I want to talk about you as a footballer. Lutz gave me a bit of a download in the green room. We've heard the rumours. Describe yourself as a player, because I'm sure Lutz is going to add a little bit to it on top.
Yeah, I always hate talking about myself. I always want to be, show and tell. Like, I'll be who I am, then you can decide for yourself. But little story, I was on trial in Stuttgart. So I didn't know, we didn't have TV coverage of the Bundesliga back in those days. I got invited for a trial. Good. Pack my bags, head over, no worries. At that time, Thomas Berthold, winner of a World Cup Italia 90, Krasimir Balakov, Bulgarian footballing legend, Swanimir Soldo, Freddy Bobic, Francois Wolfhard, Frank Fillat. So a lot of people who've made big careers, and I didn't know the scale, what I was getting into. And I saw everybody the same. And I didn't value their names. I went on the training field, I did my thing. I really was physical. I didn't respect them. The name on the back I didn't care. And it's just the way I've been brought up, whether it was a person or the footballing area I grew up in. We were hard, tough as nails to play against. Robert Callies was my first team. And if you speak to anybody in Johannesburg or from South Africa, you speak about Robert Callies, they'll be like, oh, you're in for a hard afternoon. So ever since I've known how to kick a ball, we've always been in those tough environments. And I just took that mentality to Stuttgart. And 5 days later, Freddy Bobic went to management and said, hey, you got to sign this guy. He's doing things here that a trialist has never done. And I just was myself. And I let other people judge. I try to lead by example. I just try to, even there, they didn't know my name. I couldn't speak the language. I just, gave everything in that moment. And I think that's just who you are. You cannot flick the switch and be this person that day and do this on that day, because you'll get found out. So 20 years in the industry now, or what have you, I'm still here, I'm still the same person, and I'm still tough to play against.
Freddie is a global superstar as well. To get that recommendation, that's quite something.
Yeah, and people, usually it's not a common thing on trial. Like, how many people have you signed from trials in the Bundesliga at the top level? Not maybe many people rock up on a Sunday after the game on Saturday, and here's a trialist for a week, and they get signed. I don't think I've heard of many stories, and I hate it, but I also love it because, I had something different, a different weapon, a different tool, a different ingredient to me as a person or my footballing style that stood out from the rest. So this was always interesting for me, and it always stayed close to my heart.
Lutz, what did you know about him as a player?
Well, just let me translate now what he actually said in the last 2 minutes. He literally kicked the living daylight out of people at that trial. And Freddy Bobic is one of my best friends, and he's still obviously close with Bradley as well. And his way was extremely intense. So he actually played exactly the way we want to play the game. Very tough, very clear, hardworking, always give more than 100%, be physical, be robust. And most important, have an attitude, never give up. You always want to win. And you don't necessarily have to be the most skillful player, the most technical player, but you need to work. You need to work and give your best. That was what he stood for. I mean, nickname was the Pitbull.
Yeah. The Pitbull.
Yeah. My teammates in Stuttgart, they would be like, oh, the Pitbull's here today. Like on trial, I got that already.
Maybe it had to do with the teeth, I don't know. But definitely very hardworking, very difficult to play against. And I think this is also what... how Bradley was as a player. He put over in his coaching style, in his way of mentality, the creation of a playing mentality. And that is one of the things what is exactly the same way of approach we have here with St. Louis City. And I always wanted to have a hard-working coach, a coach who puts out his sleeves, goes out on the field, gets his shoes dirty, and works and shows and improves and develops. And that's exactly the guy who sits right next to me, actually on the left side.
Yeah, and I've never wanted to be that guy who's had a playing career, and I don't believe I reached my maximum potential. I don't believe I had the best playing career, but I've always believed in a process, and not automatically having a career in the professional world doesn't make you a coach. So you have to earn those, you have to pay your dues, you have to pay your school fees and learn and apply the game from now, the mindset of a coach. And it's something that some players fall short on and want to strive too quick, too soon, and cut their teeth into coaching when they've just retired. So for me, I've taken a longer process to reflect and evaluate and move forward. And University of Johannesburg, when the lights are not on, to try and experiment, to find my way, which speaks in line with a lot of what we are doing. And I think it's a very rare opportunity now, after the chats we've had, knowing how he's built as a person, knowing what he's building as a club and how we want to go about doing things. It's very rare you find the opportunity to work together with something that's already so close to who you are as a person. And I think the things we speak about, it's a common language, which is great. Now we just have to implement it, because there's we're not differing and wavering on different opinions and styles of play. We have a style of play in mind. It's something I played. It's something he knows. It's something he's also been involved in. So it's very rare that a coach takes on a job now for the love and the excitement of doing what he believes is right. Sometimes it's just a coach to get a job and continue his coaching career, or now to manufacture a whole new system within that community. I think we all speak the same language based on where I've come from, where I'm going, and what I believe in.
Pete, one more thing you wanted to know about the playing, right? So I just wanted to give you a living example. So in Germany, the rule was always that after 5 yellow cards, you get suspended for a game. So there was this young South African kid who played his first 5 games and already had 4 yellow cards because he was going up and down the line, foam out of his mouth, just really physical, working his socks off. And then they told him, well, if you get another one, you will be suspended. So slowly he needed to drill that work rate down a bit. But that was the way he came into the game, the way he actually, stormed on the German market like a hurricane, who just really went up and down the line and made the life as difficult as possible for the guy who he played against. And if you still ask now players he did play against in Germany, they always say, I hated to play against Bradley Carnell because it was just so intense and so difficult.
How important for you as a sporting director was it to find a coach that had sort of, top level experiences in other countries? Like, was that part of the consideration when you were, on the hunt?
Yeah, there's plenty of points. I mean, one part, of course, as you said, it's very important to have played successful as a player, to know the game as a player, to play it at the highest level in the Bundesliga and also representing your country at the World Cup. But just as important was for me to have a coach who knows the American market, who coached in the MLS, who knows every single MLS stadium, who knows every single MLS player, who knows the MLS rules, who knows the playing styles of the different teams. You see how difficult it sometimes is for foreign coaches to come here in a complete different setup. They're great coaches, but they fail because they don't know the American way. Now, I'm a foreigner, and I played here, but I never coached here, or I wasn't a sporting director here. So having a coach who doesn't know the league that well would be a risk I do not want to take. So for me, it was important to have a guy which knows the league like his back pocket, and that is really important.
So we're going to move on to the next section of the podcast. We're going to talk about Bradley the coach. So I'm going to open this. You retired from professional soccer in 2011.
Correct.
There's a gap on your soccer resume. I've read lots of things that you dabbled in lots of areas. I mean, obviously, soccer players don't take a break throughout their career. Tell us a little bit about that gap between 2011 and when you started up as an assistant coach.
So 2012 was probably the most difficult year in my whole life, because 2011 you end as a 34-year-old player,
Young by most standards, right?
So, but now you're retired. You're like, hang on a second. Now reality hits you. You've been living the dream now for so many years, and fortunate to drag it out for 18 years and have so many experiences, and you've achieved and you've learned and you've grown and up and downs and what have you. You get to that now and you've graduated. Good. All right, great. What do we do now? Okay. I played golf 4 times a week, and that was about it. So, and then I thought, hang on a second, this cannot be the rest of my life. There's more to give here. And again, my ambition kicked in. So I worked a lot of times, or many years, 7 years, for Supersport International broadcasters. So doing World Cups, Africa Cup of Nations, doing the Bundesliga. We got the television rights there for the Bundesliga, so I was always a frequent guest with them. So broadcasting, communication, so learning another little nugget of how to apply the trade, down the line. 2012, got involved with the University of Johannesburg. I was meant to take on a consultancy role to build up foundations and structures, because there was something called the Varsity Cup, which all the top universities in South Africa competed in a shootout. And then after a couple of weeks, we all said in the board meeting, we need a coach. And the whole board looked at me. And I was like, okay, so you guys want me to, get out the boots again. And that's what it was, which I spent 3 years there. All of a sudden, you're getting promoted, qualifying for final of that competition in the first year out. So really, you could see straight away what I was trying to do was working, which gave me motivation now to pursue and go into the professional side of the coaching world. Had the opportunity of working as an assistant for Free State Stars. They were the first team in the South African Premier League to give me a shot as an assistant coach. Stayed there for a couple of months, and then Orlando Pirates came calling, one of the biggest teams on the African continent.
Liz, you had a stint at Orlando Pirates, right?
Great club.
Incredible. So yeah, and I worked under Musin Echegal there for 6 months before Red Bulls called. And again, not that I was just jumping, but I grew up some frustration in the 7 years that I was living in South Africa, because my mind was very ambitious. I was so active and proactive in my thinking, and at times very frustrated where I was professionally now, trying to get into the coaching world, that fortunately the call came from the guys over at Red Bulls with an assistant's role. So I jumped at that, and like I say, the 6 years were vital for my development to getting to where I was as an assistant, because it allowed me to hit the ground running.
And Lutz, Bradley's experience working at universities with shaping young people, is that part of the appeal as well? That he's been there at ground level.
Yeah, I think it's an important part. But you don't, even or regardless if you were a great player or not, you not just stop playing and suddenly you're a great coach. You need to literally learn it. You need to make your first steps. You need to make these baby steps, and most of the guys, they're starting off working in the youth departments, in the academies of some clubs, or the second way is actually going more in that educational part, like coaching at a varsity level. But it's definitely important. I believe you need to develop the way you speak to players, the way you run a session, the approach of how you actually make players understand what you want from them. And Bradley mentioned it with the lights out at a smaller level, at a level where you're not immediately under the big limelight. And I think that's very important, to make your first steps there and then gradually grow into actually the position. So, which I think is probably another story why, having really then made it through the ranks and being in a system for so many years, but then also had this experience as being an interim head coach. And I think you will come to the part now, but I think that's actually the rolling dice, which then made me think that's the guy we have to go for.
Great. Well, we will get onto that. There's a big section where we're going to talk about how you two came to meet. The Red Bull franchise, for those listening, is not just a New York franchise. It spans the globe. They've got a club in Salzburg. They've got a club in Leipzig. I think they've got a club in Brazil as well. They're famous for bringing through exciting young players like Haaland, but they're also famous for bringing through coaches. We've got Julian Nagelsmann, Marco Rose, Bernd Zolt, PSG assistant, Ralph Hasenhüttl. When you were coming over, did you have that in mind, that this is a good grounding experience?
Yeah, I think
to move up a level.
I think if you think again, what is your DNA? Does it speak to the culture of that organization? Does it speak to the philosophy of the style of play? And everything was right. And they had actually approached me earlier, prior to that, about an academy director, and it was something that I actually wasn't ready to delve into just yet. I thought my ambition, my hunger, my desire to be still on field and activate and lead by doing was far greater than that, than taking an outside role in terms of overseeing academies. I still wanted to be more hands-on, more involved in the daily operations on the field. So for me, that was interesting, exciting, but it wasn't enough of a decision for me to relocate and do the whole thing. So when the assistant role came about, and again, I'm so proud that they thought of me, and I'm so humbled by that, because they picked a guy from South Africa, that was kind of off the radar again. 7 years is a long time to be out of the professional sporting industry on a European scale or a global scale. So for me to get back in the mix, to get back within the networks and with the Red Bull family, I'm so grateful for them for entrusting me with that step of taking that on as an assistant coach, and even more proud and humble by the appointment as interim. When there was a ship needed to be steadied, they relied on me, and they saw growth and potential in what I was doing, and I was able to put it to task and perform, and we were fortunate enough to make the playoffs during that stint.
So this is where the football universe comes together, because we're going to talk about how did you two meet? Because there's a connection deeper than just the first job interview. Lutz, I'm gonna go to you for this one.
Well, it's a long story. So we already started off before, so we knew each other obviously from Germany, from playing. The football world or the football family is pretty small, so you somehow know of each other or you know each other. However, funny enough, I'm a coaching instructor, and in 2015. No, actually, let me go a step back.
A few months prior to that.
Yeah, actually, let me get a step back. I have a charity in South Africa where I do a lot of charity work, and I did spend a fair amount there, also scouting for some players. Actually, signed a player from Kaizer Chiefs, Knowledge Musona, not long before that. And when I was there, I always watched Supersport, and I watched the Bundesliga or the South African League or whatever. And there was always an analyst on TV, which I knew, which was Bradley Carnell. And the way he actually read the game, the way he explained the game, I really thought after seeing him 3-4 times, that kid could make really a good coach. He understands certain things in a very different way than all the other analysts or experts. So it was really top level punditry. So I really enjoyed that. So I somehow had him written in the back of my mind. And then a few months after, we had a charity game. I invited him to play the charity game. He played a charity game somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Namibia. He only was there for 1 day, so he actually did that really very, very important thing where we're raising a lot of awareness of education and HIV and looking after the environment with lots of world famous players from all over the world, and that part was in the southern part of Africa. So he played for the charity, and then as a coaching instructor for the German FA and for FIFA, we had this B-license course, which is an international B-license course where really talented coaches from all over the world, Asia, Australia, El Salvador, from all over Europe, they are invited to be part of that. And I always had some wild cards for talented coaches. So I invited 3 guys. I invited one guy from Uzbekistan, which I knew, which was a former national player. And I had these 2 more slots where I thought, let's give it to 2 South Africans. Delron Buckley, which was a player for Borussia Dortmund before, which also coached in South Africa at that time. And the other one was Bradley. So he came to Germany. He was there for 3 weeks where they did this B-license course where I also was part of the teaching stuff. And we had a pretty few, actually quite a few lessons there together for that time. And that is how when he got his license with an unbelievable top level score, when he came to the points, everybody from my colleagues from the teaching staff said, from the instructors, that was outstanding. There is something special about him. So that was when I really had him written down
So your intuitions were right.
Yeah,
from the
in my book, and then actually when he went to my former club, Orlando Pirates, it was great because that's a team I always somehow, when you team you played for, you always watch. And then suddenly I saw him being actually in New York, so I thought, well, my feeling was really right in that part, and then I just followed it really from the distance, watching what he does. Not every game, but checking in sometimes. And then once I did come myself to the States, I started to watch even more detailed. Yeah, now we're sitting here.
Did you know that Lutz was watching you as a pundit and
no, that
making judgments? Or is this new?
It's the first time I've ever heard of that. So, I mean, listen, it's again, you can get a job as a pundit, you can get a job as an assistant coach. It's what you do with it. How prepared are you? What do you invest every day into making that best possible moment, the best possible moment for you, and what you're selling your product, right? So you're trying to, commit to the task at hand and now delivering it, and who knows who might be watching one of these days. And I always believe if you work hard, keep your head down, you will be rewarded. So my path has taken a little bit longer for me, in all fairness, but I think, it's the right path that I've chosen. And I think it's also about the timing. Some of the last few months, personally wise, have led me to ask a question, if not now, when? And we don't have to get in the background of that, but those are the questions I've been asking myself the last 6 months. If not now, when? And the opportunities come around, and I'm, challenging myself now to take on this challenge based on that.
And taking your first job is such a massive step, because as a young head coach, it's got to be the right decision. If you want a long and fruitful career. How important was having good chemistry with a sporting director to your decision?
It's the most important thing, because these are the two closest people that have to do with the daily runnings of the club in terms of what is the output on game day? How does this team play? How does this team connect to the people? How does this team connect to the communities? And are we on the right track? So we can all have these open discussions based on, are we holding each other accountable to what we're doing? Are we having the buy-in? Are we making sure that we believe in the same way? Are we pulling in the same direction? And I think we've had open, honest discussions about how he believes. I've already, given my opinion on a few things. So I'm eager to get going. I want to get started. I can't wait until that day comes. And I think it's, again, grateful for the opportunity a year in advance now to build a foundation, to plant the seeds, which will bear fruits for many years to come. Maybe it outlongs us, our stay 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line, that we've built legacies for my kids if they choose to stay in this area, in this community. So I think these are the vital steps. He spoke about baby steps, and I agree with it. We have to have a common synergy and push each other to the max every day.
Great. Well, we're going to move into the next section of the podcast, and we're going to talk about how the St. Louis City opportunity came about. But before we get into that, Lutz, I want us to take a step back and ask, what were the fundamentals that you were looking for in a new head coach? Because you could have picked anyone in the world. What were the key things that you were looking for?
Quite a big list, to be honest. I mean, I think to describe the position in a certain way is important here. So we always said, we don't want to bring a head coach 3, 4, 5 months before we kick off in 2023. We're building something from scratch. We're building a philosophy. I want to have this head coach available next to me as early as possible, which I always say a year is a perfect time. I think LAFC with Bob Bradley showed it really well, that this 1 year of coming in to really prepare a philosophy, an idea, player profiles, to be involved in scouting and recruitment, to be involved in actually also in dealing with the academy coaches to help, to be involved in a lot of things is really important. So that to get that year window was the first requirement for me. Secondly, we made it very clear how our philosophy will be, the way we want to play, the way we want to be seen, that intense, high pressing, really high speed football, where pressing, counter pressing, a hard working way is the key. We said that very clearly from day one. So it would be the wrong way to bring a coach who plays something completely different, and we have to throw our philosophy out of the window. So we chose our coach after the philosophy fits in. And the way Bradley worked, the clubs with Red Bull he worked for, it's a very, very close connection to the club I grew up with, which is Hoffenheim, where Ralf Rangnick made Hoffenheim, Ralf Rangnick made Red Bull. So that basic philosophy is really much the same. So, I mean, I always say Red Bull came actually out of an idea of Hoffenheim. They don't like to hear that, but that's my my way of thinking. And so we needed to fit that person who understands the game plan, the philosophy from scratch. And this is a very similar way with a few little things. And then there's this one little secret sauce, I would call it. And I think it's not giving too much detail, but it's an interesting fact. The Red Bull philosophy is pretty clear. It's something you know what you get. It's not anything surprising, but it's really tough to play against. When Bradley took over the team as interim head coach, I could see that little things he changed, and that little things worked wonders. I'm not telling you what the things are, but he did change that. And this is exactly that, how I see it, how I want to play, how we as St. Louis want to play. And that's why it was, for me, in the end of the day, the perfect match. Plus, I mentioned it before, knowing the league, knowing the players, knowing the stadiums, knowing everything about the MLS. And you mentioned it, Pete, we could have brought a top coach from Germany, a top coach from England, a top coach from Spain, which had maybe coached 100 games in the Champions League. But is that what helps us in this situation right now? There's only one answer. No. We need to have the guy who is young, ambitious, hungry, and fits exactly in our philosophy and not the other way around.
So I work for the club, but at core I'm a fan. So I'm going to ask this question. It sounds like there wasn't a long list of prospects. Sounds like you had an understanding of who you were going to go after and that you laser focused. Would that be correct, or can you not answer that?
There was a huge number of people who applied for the job. It's that long you would need a whole night actually to read it through from all over the world. And yes, we did make different short lists, and there was a short list of maybe 6-7 people, where I would say after 2-3 months of analyzing that short list, we had our main candidate, our first choice candidate, and that first choice was Bradley, and we got our first choice candidate, which was for me very important. That if I have my list with 7-8 coaches and I get number 5 or number 6, I wouldn't have been too happy about it. To get the guy which was number 1 on the list with all the boxes ticking, that is what we wanted, and it worked out. So we were, in some ways, the way it was done, we were also lucky to get him out of a running contract with Red Bull, to actually make the approach to Red Bull, to be that cheeky and say, come on, we want to talk to that guy. Give us the permission to speak to him. And they did, and it worked out in the end.
So you get the call from Lutz. Red Bull have given permission. What were your first thoughts? Lutz is on the phone. You're back in contact.
If not now, when? That's, again, and this decision based on these previous experiences, what I've just recently had in my personal life, it justified now taking the next step. I felt now having dialogue with coaches, sporting directors all over the world. How do they see this? Because I often pick up little pieces of information. I always look to get advice from people who've been in the industry a lot longer than I have, for people who have excelled at the highest level a lot more than I have. Just getting these bits of information justified my question to my personal self. What do we do? And yeah, the questions always came back, this is your right time. And I must compliment Gerhard Struber as well. He said, Brad, I've seen this. Your work ethic in the last year, only working with you in 1 year's time, I can see already now, you're ready for the next step. Go, spread those wings. You can go and do that. So it just justifies it even more and just empowers me even more to go out and give this all I've got and empty the tank. And yeah, again, super proud and excited that Lutz has given me the chance and put his trust in me, and I'm going to do my best to reward that.
Great. So the interim manager part of your career was important to Lutz. Was it also important to you because then you realized, yeah, I can do this. I can take the next step?
For sure. I think, your character always gets challenged when you put in pressurized situations, right? So, yeah, I'll never forget that day when Chris Armas and the assistant coach CJ Brown got let go. I was next on the list, got called to the office, and they walked out, and I could see dejection in their face. And I was thinking, oh no, this has just happened. I think I'm next. So from thinking I'm packing my bags to the emotional roller coaster of now, okay, we need you to run the club till the end of the season. And I'm like, okay, I'll let you know. So in the beginning, very overwhelming. It's very easy to stay in the shadow as an assistant coach, but now you come out of the shadows. In certain moments, do you crumble or do you grow? And I felt in pressurized moments, I was able to absorb the situation, absorb the tension of the players, whatever they were going through. I was able to absorb that and to come the next day with a smile on my face and get the job done. Have some good hard messages with the players, and they embraced it. The senior players bought into what I wanted to achieve, and we went 6 out of the last 7 games unbeaten to get into a playoff spot. We became really difficult to play against. Red Bull teams are always difficult to play against, but we found a way to get results. We found a way to score goals late. We found a way to never give up. We found a way to really go out and for the common cause of the club, for what we stand and for what we believe. We found a new life. We found a new energy. And yeah, we portray that on a daily basis, in trainings, on travel days, on the field. So we pushed each other to get this, to set a standard of making playoffs. I didn't want to be the first coach that ever coached Red Bulls never to make the playoffs. They've had a standard of making the playoffs 12 times in succession now, not on my watch. It wasn't going to be me that, okay, interim role, coach role, whatever it was, whatever I was there to do, not on my watch. I'm not going down saying, okay, we got it kind of right, and we're good. It was okay. We steadied the ship, but we didn't make the playoffs. This was never a thought for me. Making the playoffs was always a thought for me, and setting and keeping the standard. That was it for me.
So Lutz, you've seen the playoffs. You're impressed. What happens next? How does this move forward?
Yeah, so we did work through that coaching list, but then it was important for me to check out lots of other things. I needed to figure out. I mean, we knew each other, but we don't know each other that well. So I need to make a lot of background check, a lot of calls, players who played with him, players who worked with him, players who were coached by him. I just wanted to get really, literally cut the person, Bradley Kennell, into 1,000 pieces to realize who is he, not just as a player or a coach. I need to dig very deep in there. Like, what's the family situation? How did he grow up? It's like nothing else than scouting a player. It's even more the way you scout. And once we really had that, we built that, and then we started slowly to think about, okay, now how do we go ahead? We need to make some interviews. And once we basically figured that, I contacted Red Bull. We asked for permission, which was a very important part to really follow that through properly with the league rules. And at the same time, we organized another 4 or 5 interviews with coaches because we still want to compare. It's still, yes, I know now everything, but now let's talk. Let's talk with him. And let's talk to other guys as well. And then what's the feeling you get? And once we had that progress actually finished and the process went well, we made again our I would call it our final ranking, how we want to go through. And then the first person we spoke to was Bradley, and we really cutting it down to the part, and in the end of the day we got the commitment to that. So we only had to make one offer in the end of the day to one person. even though we interviewed quite a few. The one who was on the number one on our list was the one we got in the end.
And what was the approach to speaking to the wider ownership group? I understand that you're quite handy with a PowerPoint presentation.
Well, it's one of the things as a coach, you need to put your thoughts onto paper. And it's been probably my biggest weakness, you know. So, yeah, going through the role as interim, starting to think now and reflect back, how did we succeed? Why did we succeed? And you reflect back into that, and now you're putting it onto documents, and you're cutting videos, and you're making sure that you up to speed with all of that. And obviously it's not a thing that you do alone. I have people, you know, who help me in terms of leadership, in guidance. You know, I have my own little core of people that if I need a nugget of information about leadership, I'm going to go to them and get some leadership. If I need some analytics, I'll go to some people who help me with the analytics. So I always have aligned myself with the right people in order to adopt this approach. And now, once it all came together, permission from the Red Bulls was given. I flew out here on a 2-day stint. The players, we had 2 days off. No one knew. Nobody was in the know. And was fortunate enough that the ownership group had time for me. You know, I know it's a massive organization, and time is, you know, really key for those individuals. And when I walked in the room, you're expecting a really hostile, intimidating, and it was totally the opposite. It was totally, hey, Bradley, relax, this is us, you know, we want something to drink. And they really approached me, and I was talking to Caroline, like talking to my sister, so open, so welcoming, so forgiving. It's incredible how she portrays herself to a total stranger. And for me, this spoke volumes. So calm me down, because it's really, you know, overwhelming experience now coming into your first interview gig as a potential head coach. And I'm like, okay, how is this going to play out now? The first 5 minutes, I was myself. And that was the most important thing. Put on the PowerPoint, flip through the presentation, and really had a good feeling. And you know, by speaking, them sharing what they believe and how the community aligns with what they are trying to do, then now coming back to, here it is on the presentation. This is why I do everything. For me, it's family first. And the first slide was my family. It was not a footballing document. It was not a 4-4-2. It wasn't a style of play. It was a picture of my family. So I think for them to see that I'm not doing this for me, it's not ego-driven. There's always a different cause on why we're doing these things.
So job interviews are a two-way process. What were you looking for to make you feel good that this was the right opportunity? You know, like we've already spoken about, you know, you've got a great connection with Lutz, you share a strong philosophy, but outside of just the footballing reasons, what really drew you to St. Louis and working for this club? I
think the culture speaks volumes. You know, the hunger and the desire to develop talent in this area. I think this is a hotbed of talent, you know, in terms of people who have come out of this community, in terms of players. There's a couple, you know, Josh Sargent, Tim Ream, even Tom Barlow for the Red Bulls comes out of this area. So there's Taylor Twellman. There's a long list of names, all right? And you know, strangely enough, the MLS hasn't hit here yet. They don't have an address here yet. So to be part of that now, aligning with everything, who we are, what we want to identify ourselves with, how we want to give back to the communities, how do we want to embrace these communities for decades, not just now, to build a legacy, to build now paths of success, to go down the lines, and to really have a real structured approach in how to develop and breed this talent and get people to excel and to grow and to fulfill their dreams, just as I did. You know, for me, a South African kid making it into Europe, I dreamt about playing for Liverpool, never quite got there, made it to Germany, dream. It was a dream of mine to play in Europe. I achieved the dream. Now, how many kids can we help to achieve their dreams? And
Lutz, I'm going to ask this in front of Bradley. We've already touched on it. The fans are going to ask, why should they be excited about Bradley Carnell as the new head coach of St. Louis City?
Well, I think we touched most of that points why, but one of the points which I didn't say it is timing. You know, plenty of people always were rumored that Bradley actually will follow Jesse Marsch one day to Europe, maybe Salzburg, maybe Leipzig. So will he actually take that step again to go back to Europe as an assistant? And I had that feeling after speaking to him and especially watching that playoffs that he knew now it's the right time. If I stay in an assistant role for much longer, I will be my whole life, I will be an assistant to somebody. So I think we really managed the right timing to go for him. If we would have not come for him now, I believe lots of coaching movements in the MLS, another one or two clubs would have literally stolen him under our noses. So I think we just were quicker. Probably it was an advantage that we knew each other from before. But I'm super excited. I just can tell you that to all the fans out there, everything we spoke before about how we play, how we want to be seen, our philosophy, our style, that is the coach who understands that, who can implement it 100%. And especially as a first-year new MLS team in 2023, that is really important that we all know exactly what we do, that we all trust each other, and that we follow our philosophy and our values, nevertheless, whatever happens.
That is the perfect segue into the final section of the podcast. The future is now. You are going to help architect that future. What is your elevator pitch to the fans of St. Louis City?
Yeah, listen, I'm going to go deep. You know, whatever I do, I stay the course. And for me, it's so important now I'm already asking about squad depth, U16s, U17s, the academy team now, the LDL team that's getting developed next year. This is so key for me to build this platform now to excel. So planting these seeds. So whatever I do, I get my hands dirty. You know, I'm not a guy who backs away. There are talkers and there are doers. I like to do. And this is forged my way, and I've been thankful and grateful for all the opportunities given by doing. And this is me. Whatever I'm here to stay. I'm here to stay the course, and I'm going to give my best day in and day out, empty the tank. On game day, you're going to see a team there that's thriving and driving and really hounding the opposition till no ends and almost to the point of exhaustion. I mean, we're going to push these guys all the way to the limit, and we're going to play with a passion and a pride and a real identity.
Well, that's got me hyped. So let's talk about a few things that I hear Lutz say a lot. He talks about philosophy, identity, and culture, and those words don't always mean a lot to fans. Tell us a little bit about your soccer philosophy.
Sure. For us, it's very directional.
Yeah.
It's very intense, okay? And yeah, it's short, sharp, intricate passing, where we can always have a good structure when we have the ball, we build in mechanisms for when it goes wrong. I call it the security system. So when we lose the ball, what do? How up the field? How can we engage? How can we now force these transition moments going to goal in the quickest amount of time? Because we do this to score goals. We do this to entertain. The fans want goal-scoring moments. They want goals. They want energy high up the field. We want to win corners. We want to win penalties with free kicks in dangerous areas. So the more time that we are in the opponent's half, the better it is for all of us.
So that sounds like a really exciting soccer philosophy to me. I know that aligns very much with what Lutz has been telling us for a while now. Culture is obviously incredibly important. It's a set of standards that everybody adheres to. It keeps people like on the right path. Could you just share a couple of like core principles that go into like your culture? Yeah,
just, be a good person first and foremost. Do good. If there's somebody in and around the training facility that needs something, and you say it's not my job, no. We're all in here. We're all, crossing our paths. We're all part sporting director. We're all part scout. We're all part analyst. We're going to get our hands dirty. So, and whether as a player or as a staff member, I think we all want this approach, just in terms of driving culture, holding people accountable, having open conversations. And sometimes the conversations that we have are not the most comfortable situations, but it's empowering players to feel comfortable in certain areas, and especially with this generation now of technology and nice presentations and making it so interactive for the players to engage. I want players to engage. Normally it's a coach telling the team what to do. We want players who engage in communication, engage in discussions, engage in knowing, coach, why are we doing this? Explain to me how and why and what is the purpose for doing this. I want this environment to be created, and this is not something that can just happen overnight, and this is a process to get the trust from the players and the buy-in. And don't worry, it's okay to say the wrong thing. At least we know now, do we need to go back to the drawing board? Do we need to now think of our way? Was your way right? You know, so there's certain element of trust in being comfortable in and around each other. So it's about team building. It's about, sharing these common core values and identities and looking forward to what brings this club to the next level. So, empowerment, humility, accountability. So we all talk, it's all easy to talk it, but I like doing it.
Yeah.
If there's a fly on the wall and there's nobody watching me and there's a piece of trash on the floor, pick it up, put it in the bin. So just be a good person and do good around. And I feel those are values on the field when times are tough and it's the last 5 minutes of the game and we're really struggling, the opponent's breathing down our neck. And these, the togetherness and the collective ideas on how we want to get out of this and what we're going to build to achieve these things, I think, a great team is better than any one individual.
Lutz, listening to Bradley talk there, he sounds like a very modern sort of person that would work in any business. This open communication, is that important when you're looking to grow a generation that doesn't really see hierarchy in the same way? Do you think about those sorts of things when you're when you're thinking about Bradley?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a big part of our culture. I mean, if you look in our trainings facility, the way we have our staff offices built is big offices where the different kind of coaches from the different teams always have opportunity to talk, to discuss, to analyze together. It's all one club. We don't try to build walls between the first team and the LDL team or between the academy. It's all one. It's all St. Louis City SC. And this is the way, I want a head coach I can touch. He needs to be an approachable guy. He needs to be a guy which talks in the morning, good morning to everybody. It's a guy which can be asked for advice from the young coaches, from the young players. I don't want a big-time Charlie sitting behind his desk and thinking he invented the football. That's the wrong approach. We are all one. It's like a big family. That is how we want to be seen. And that's exactly the values, how we will approach that. So there is not this super well-treated professional team and the unimportant teams. Everything is one. Everybody is the same. And that's we're going how to approach that.
So talking of corporate environments, when leaders go into businesses, they have a 90-day plan. Tell us what your 90-day plan is. Like, what are you looking to do? Because there's, you don't have a first team yet.
No, we don't have a first team, but I think it's the most important 90-day plan. I think it's the most important 365-day plan in terms of, getting into the foundation of what does the scouting look like? What does the academy look like? What is the analytical department? How's the data being driven? What are we backing it up with? Can we prove that our style of play is working? So all of these little departments now it's not the time, but having the opportunity to grow with and, be part of the scouting, the recruiting, the analytics, the academy. So for me, it's the most important phase of my job. Going into the deep end, hitting the ground running. I think this galvanizes and sort of builds what we are trying to do and ensures success for us come day one of 2023. So these are the most important steps I believe in right now in getting it right. We want to get it right and making sure, and I think we have the right people in place. And Lutz has done a magnificent job in getting the right people. The ownership group has done a magnificent job in conversations with John Hackworth. Exactly, when I speak to John, it feels like I'm talking to myself. He's like, you're so right. Yes, we do this. I'm like, 100%. We align with so many things that we are doing. And this is always a good sign for a healthy synergy in terms of working together to build a long-term project and being successful at it. Because we don't do this for fun. We don't do this just because it's a passion, a hobby, a living. We do this because also it's a professional industry and long-term goals. We want to win silverware.
Lutz, you're one of the best scouts in world football. You've unearthed some absolute gems in your time. How are you and Bradley going to work together on the scouting front? Like, what does the relationship look like there? Do you have similar tastes in players? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, the players we will choose, they need to fit in our playing style. You know, you can have the best players in the world. If they don't fit in that what we want to do, it just simply won't work. You can have the best individual player. If he doesn't want to work defensively, he doesn't want to be part of this unit, it still won't work for us. So we will build a squad which has exactly all the attributes we spoke about, who are able to press high, who are able to be intense, who are able to really push it up as high as possible, and to play that entertaining, entertaining style. I would call it a very unique style. And the scouting and recruitment to find that right guys, I think that's the key. So John Hackworth, myself, and Bradley, plus the scouting team, which we are right now building, really need to look at a lot of markets: the varsity market, the MLS market, the USL market, the European market, the South American market, the African market. There is so much on, and we need to really filter now all the players. I mean, I'm getting offered hundreds of players every day from all over the world. So it's a big job actually to say no to the players you don't want, to actually find the guys we do want. And that's now a big part for the next few months.
I've got a question that sits a little bit outside of, like, you know, your main day today. But one of the promises of the club is to bring soccer to all of St. Louis. I just wanted to know whether you've had sort of time to, you know, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, the first thing I asked her this morning in a meeting, I said, are we planning mini pitches in the communities, you know, to engage communities in giving them the platform and the opportunity to, share their dream, to play their dream, to maybe develop a dream, to bring people together, to grow communities. So, I'm very much focused in this direction and very much on board in what the club is trying to achieve, to include and build communities and to adopt a culture and to take on our culture within the community and just make change, do good. And I think it's a very important ingredient of getting this project right. Is the most important thing, is creating support, in creating success for sure, but I think it's the outskirts that bring generations to come, you know, the platform that's been so wanting in this area for so many years, despite the talent that's always been here. I feel it's very important now to make it accessible, to make it free. I think, Lutz, you've spoken about that before, to make it accessible to everybody, because the best players in the world are not always the most affluent players. You know, the best players are the guys. Soccer's the cheapest game in the world. All you need is a piece of trash from your lunch, roll it up, and you can play a game. I remember playing. Short story quickly. Okay, I know we got a time crunch. We used to collect rubbish barrels from the next door lot in South Africa, put them out on our lawn to make goalposts. All right, and I have a nice big scar here to validate that, because we used to play, throw them over the wall again, but this one hit the wall, crashed me straight back in the face. You know, so it wasn't very accessible for us, but we made a way. Now the club, the ownership, they've made a way for people to now develop and grow and become, engaged in the sport that we so love.
And I think to add on that, you know, I always like to talk in the three pillars: short term, medium term, long term. And we always say the first team is actually the short term. We only have a year time to build that. But it's important that the head coach looks in the long term. Where do we find these players? How do we engage the community? Where are we as inclusive and as diverse as possible? We saw that at some of our open trials. There is so much talent out there. We need to bridge that from the first team into the academy, into the community, and the head coach needs to be part of the community. He needs to be there. He needs to really motivate youngsters and kids to be part, to play this game. It's a very, very big thing where a head coach, and as well as myself, and as well the first professional players who play here, they need to be out there in the community to show what we're doing, who show what we are, and that we want them to be the next ones. It's really, really important.
Yeah, and I feel I'm living that. I'm the living product of being given a chance at Stuttgart, VfB Stuttgart, a 10-day trial. You know, nobody had to give me that chance. Somebody gave me that chance, and they gave me the platform to now put my skill set on show. And now, how many people are like that all over the world? There's too many people that never really got the opportunity. So that's where I slipped through the cracks. Somebody gave me the opportunity, and how many opportunities now can we now do the same?
Great. That was inspiring. So I hope anybody listening to this is feeling the same way I am, because I'm pumped about the future, and I'm not even from St. Louis. So two questions to close this out, and they're very future facing. It is early days, and this is an unfair question to drop on you now, but like, what are your ambitions for St. Louis? Like, what where do you want to take this? Yeah,
listen. I mean, if you look at the running, to obviously hit the ground running, play with a style and an identity that aligns with exactly what we're trying to do on a daily basis. Are we playing the way we set out to initially? So backing it up with data, making sure we know we're on the right track, making sure that we're sticking up to our promise of the fans and the support structure of the communities. Are we doing this on a daily basis? And looking at now from a performance point of view, 13, 14 wins this year gets us in the playoffs. So how quick can we get to 13, 14 wins? I mean, that's maybe not dreaming. I'm a very realistic person. And I believe if you have a very solid game model from very early on, with support structures in place, a good academy thriving that's been running for a couple of months now, and maybe some players who've already brought in with our identity and aligned in what we are trying to do, for sure. Those targets, are they achievable in the first year? Yeah, we're going to do everything to do that within the first year. And like I said, 13, 14 wins, anything can happen.
Brilliant. And then the final one is about the fans. St. Louis City fans are loud, they're excited, they're proud. They're really looking to the future, and they're excited about it. Have you taken a moment to think about what it will feel like to walk out to 22,000 fans screaming for the team that you've helped build with Lutz and John?
I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I think it's a relationship almost that it's meant to be. And then thinking, I've been out to the training facility a few times, the stadium, have had a look at the structure that's going up, and I've dreamt a little bit what it could feel like, what it could be like. And I've heard of the fans at the hockey. I've heard about how that was last night. And I've still got to get there, by the way. I would love to experience that, because I've heard so much about the fan culture here. And I just think it escalates now when we go into game day one, match day one, at home in front of our 22,500 fans. They're going to be sounding like 40, 50,000, and I know that, and I'm going to embrace that, and the team's going to play for it. The team's going to empty the tank with them, and we're going to need the support structure for sure of the fans. The fans are the first and the last on the list of order of importance. We're doing this for the fans.
Well, what a great way to end the podcast. Bradley Carnell, congratulations on the job. Welcome to St. Louis. Everybody's wishing you the best of luck. Lutz, congratulations on naming your first head coach at the club, and thank you both for your time. We hope that you'll come back on again very soon in the future.
Thanks,
Pete.